There are several hundred district judges throughout the UK dealing with civil and family work. There are some niche jurisdictions like bankruptcy, intellectual property, but most of them deal with civil and family.
I applied initially because I was doing a lot of county court work in practice as a solicitor, mainly family with some civil work as well. Enjoyed being in the courtroom, although not being at the bar. It wasn't maybe as regular as the barristers who obviously appear regularly, but enjoyed it, got a feel for the work, had a good relationship with the local district judges that I used to appear in front of, and had discussions with them from time to time about career paths, and they were encouraging about considering an application to become a deputy district judge at the time. And I looked at what I was doing, my workload, my commitment in practice, and thought, well, yes, it's something to consider. We study to be lawyers. We have obviously a huge knowledge, background of different types of work, experience, and I thought it's another strand really to what I had trained to do. At that point, I wasn't necessarily thinking a full-time appointment. It was a step-by-step process, and I looked at it as a way of using my knowledge and experience in a different direction.
I was a solicitor for 20 years in private practice, specialising in family law, and I was particularly involved in children cases and was a solicitor advocate, and I appeared before judges in family courts and was inspired to be a family judge. At that point there wasn't a specific route to become a family judge, so I applied to become a deputy district judge and then full-time district judge when an opportunity came up at Central Family Court. I would encourage solicitors like me to apply. I would advise them that the initial steps, which are to become a civil deputy district judge, are worth investing in, and it's an area of law that helps going forward. But then there are opportunities after you've mastered civil as much as you can to become a family judge if that's what you want.
We moved up here about 2000, and I joined Chambers in Newcastle on that date, and at that time I was a specialist family practitioner. By 2005 I'd cut down even more, to the extent that I was specialising only in financial remedy and trusts of land cases, so really family money. So when I was appointed as a deputy district judge in 2010, I had no experience at all of the civil procedure rules, of civil law generally, and I had to start from a standing start in terms of learning about a completely different jurisdiction to that in which I generally practiced. I would have to say that the training that I got from the organisation is second to none. The residential courses equip you very well, and that since that time I've been sitting in the whole of the civil jurisdiction.
So I qualified through one of the non-traditional routes. There's a misconception that you need a degree from one of the great universities to get to this stage in your career. But I started as the office junior in a small firm in Oldham on the high street there. I did 26 years in that firm, firstly qualifying as a legal executive and then as a solicitor in about 2002. And I was there until I became a deputy district judge in about 2013.
But one matter that is raised with me quite frequently is age. I don't mind telling you that I'm in my early 50s. I was appointed when I was just about 51, so probably around about an age that people would expect people to be making an application. But one of my colleagues just a little south of Newcastle was appointed at the age of 37. We have somebody here who's in his very early 40s, and a friend of mine who was appointed on the North Western Circuit was 59 when he was appointed. It's a fairly late retirement age, and the criteria, I think, are that you should have at least be able to put in at least 5 years before retirement. So I very much would say don't be put off because you consider that you're either too young or too old to make an application for this job. Both bring with them advantages, youth and enthusiasm, and being able to commit to the job for 20 or 30 years is a really big plus, but so is the experience of coming to matters perhaps a little later in one's career.
So one of the things that worried me when I was thinking of applying was the breadth of the jurisdiction and how I would get through the tests, given that I was quite a specialist practitioner doing property law. But eventually I came to the realisation that everyone applying is in pretty much the same boat, because really no one in practice is fully on top of the whole of a district judge's jurisdiction, because it is so wide, from property to consumer to family, money, insolvency, all of it falls within the district judge's jurisdiction. I did a bit of swatting, looked in a few books. I went back to my bar school manuals. There's really good introductions. I bought the new ones because they were somewhat out of date. And I found that a good way to just familiarise myself with the basics in the areas where I didn't practice. And I've ended up, as a judge, doing 50% of my time in exclusively family courts, which is not what I did in practice at all. And I found that really rewarding, and actually one of the really positive things about the role was the change and learning some stuff in new jurisdictions that I wasn't familiar with. It's been really good to get a bit of a change after so many years practicing in one narrow area. I've really enjoyed that.
Different people have different reasons for applying for full-time appointment. For me, I felt I'd be doing a good job. I've been doing it now full-time for 10 years. I find I'm familiar with the process and comfortable in my role. But the excitement is still there, that little buzz of doing some good things and perhaps not so much helping, but moving things on for people in one way or another. That's still there. It's not for everyone, and it's really useful for anybody who's thinking that they might like to try this to go and watch a judge at work, not just from the advocate side of the bench, but actually go and sit with the judge and watch from behind the scenes. Some people don't really like it, and some people are really excited and think it's the thing for them. And of course, if you become a part-timer, you can then really experience what it's like. And in the end, just because you're a good advocate doesn't make you a good judge, and vice versa. And the JAC are very good at working out who has the right aptitude for this particular role. Certainly, from my perspective, I enjoy it immensely, and I wouldn't change it for anything.